Rain moved across parts of Nebraska this week. Now to forecast what looks to be yet another warm week across the state, here's UNL Extension statewide climatologist Al Dutcher.
Well, folks, here we are again on Friday morning. Of course, last week we talked about the potential for an upper air troughing pattern to move into the south central plains and with the low to cut off and slowly migrate around the south central plains and give some tremendous values of moisture, especially in Oklahoma and points southward. That did very much pan out. And unfortunately for Nebraska, we did not see nearly the amount of moisture that we were anticipating. Yes, we did see some anywhere from a half an inch to an inch totals for the total storm in southeast and east portions of east central Nebraska, but as you headed toward northeast Nebraska, the precipitation totals dropped off rather dramatically. Haven't seen any significant moisture coming out of this region, basically in the quarter of an inch range. And then, of course, in western Nebraska, most of the panhandle didn't receive anything from the storm system and only some very light precipitation amounts across the southwest. So some areas did receive some valuable moisture. Other areas, unfortunately, missed out on a very potentially beneficial rain event. So we're going to have to wait for the next significant system to move into our region. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to see any major troughing pattern come in until the last of the month. So really, we're going to be looking at weak cold fronts coming through to generate some thunderstorm activity. And I will bring this point to bear that as this big system is expected to come out toward the end of the month, there is some cold air behind it that may actually bring some freezing temperatures in somewhere in the eastern two-thirds of the United States. And of course, with the wheat crop being as bad as it is, or as far advanced as it is to the south of us, that could potentially be very devastating in terms of production. Do we have any cold air in the forecast? Not really, but let's take a look at the upper air models and see how this week should progress. As we go through the models, we'll notice that we have an upper air low that was responsible for all the precipitation is going to gradually move toward the east, so we'll see rain chances ending in the southeast this morning, and then we'll start to see a clearing trend as we move through the weekend. So we'll be looking at highs in the upper 60s with extensive cloud cover. Breaking, if it does break earlier, we'll see temperatures bump up a little bit, but we're looking at highs in the upper 70s across the west. Now, as we go into tomorrow, that low now has moved over into the Ohio River Basin. We're seeing ridging pressure building into the south central plains and extending up into the northern plains. Very nice temperatures, highs in the low 70s north to possibly even the low 80s across the southwest. And as we go into Sunday, now this ridge is firmly in place. Everybody should be very warm. We'll be looking at highs in the mid 70s across the northeast to the low 80s across south central and southwest Nebraska. And as we get into Monday, looks to be the warmest day across the state as we'll have a southwest flow aloft. We'll be looking at highs that'll be in the low 80s north to possibly the mid 80s southwest and south central. And on Tuesday, we start to see moisture coming out of the system, so there's a chance for thunderstorm activity, particularly of the high plains, and maybe a severe weather outbreak if we can get the front to come through at perfect timing. We're looking at highs in the northwest from the upper 60s, and we'll be looking for the low 80s across extreme southeastern Nebraska. Now, as we get to Wednesday, here comes this system coming out, and that's going to generate the potential for severe thunderstorm activity across western Nebraska. Halfway decent chance of moisture, nothing real extreme, but there is moisture chances. Looking at highs in the mid 60s across the north to the low 70s across the south. And as we get into Thursday, that system moves up the Great Lakes. We should see a drying pattern, highs in the mid 60s across the north to the low 70s across the south. As we go into the 8 to 14 day forecast from next Thursday to the following Tuesday, we'll be looking at above normal temperatures. And in terms of precipitation, not much in the way of any significant moisture.